Alexa is a leading voice on AI and social justice. She's a professor of English women and gender and sexuality studies, theater, international affairs, and East Asia language and literature at George Washington University in Washington, D.C., where she directs the Digital Humanities Institute. She's a faculty of Trustworthy AI Initiative and affiliated at the NSF Institute for Trustworthy AI in Law and Society. In 2024, she was named the inaugural Public Interest Technology Scholar. Welcome. Her research title is AI Goes to Theater, an investigation through performance and interface theories. So welcome, Alexa, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Man and ATHE, for having me this morning. I'm going to talk about what happens when AI goes to theater with human audiences. And I'm going to use interface theory to investigate this new phenomenon. As you can see on the screen here, some of the key questions for this project include whom does the screen interface serve and how do artificial intelligence tools affect theatrical publics. And these AI apps on audiences' phones developed by the theater makers, developed by the theater space and the play-going space, and making connections to the space outside as well, the society at large. The second question is, how does AI kind of affect all these relationships in the context of theater? Basically, screens, if you think of your cell phone screen, your computer screen, they're a site where cultural and performative meanings are generated and negotiated. And interface theory is especially useful in thinking about screens' roles in regulating the public's access to performance. Screens can produce new ambient conditions of theater going. Some will say it's distraction, but in my view, it's just a multi-layered channels to access the performance, but also to think about the world that audiences are supposedly left behind when they come in. And the screens, AI-infused screens, change the public's relationships to themselves and to the performance. And in particular, in my case study, this production called All the World's a Screen. It's an Irish sign language production. Screens in that show become co-spectating theatrical publics because the theater makers, they actually call those the AI translation apps on audiences' phones a co-spectator, like a guest that audiences bring to the show. The crew encouraged the theater-going publics to use their AI app on the phone and think of it as an anthropomorphized machine guest. And they can use this to obtain auto-captioning based on post-analysis of the actor and to receive retail suggestions that the AI deemed relevant, whatever the actor is wearing. So operating both within and beyond the fabula of the performance, AI-infused screens create multiple theatrical publics through an imperfect spectatorial proxy. So the AI is a guest, but also a proxy. AI conjoins and disconnect people and ideas across the playing space and play-going space. So generative AI used in the arts, I see it as a ghost of the publics, a synthetic version of the publics or a shadow public. It is coded to produce syntheses of anonymized public voices. This is similar to kind of producing a blurry picture of the linguistic contour of the World Wide Web. The screen as interface and as assistive technology is neither an ideologically neutral blank canvas nor an artistically integrated framing device for dramatic narratives. To demonstrate this idea, my idea of kind of AI as a kind of blurry mirror image, I generated this image using my prompts with DALL-E 2. It's been some time now. And this image illustrates my argument about AI being a pixelated image of ourselves and of the publics. So I'm going to look at three keywords. We have performance, and interface theory, as well as the publics. I'm going to define each, and then we'll proceed to look at the case studies. So, performance. A theatrical performance is an intentioned enactment of text. Some would say dramatic text, but it can also be social text. And importantly, this enactment is typically bracketed from social practices of daily life by technologies of representation. At least this is the argument advanced by Diana Taylor and several others. So it has to be bracketed off, and it's a technology. It's thanks to technology of representation, which one will emphasize here. It requires some kind of interface, right? Theater is an interface, just like AI. And these interfaces will frame, will deliver, will narrate the story in a stage production. So without interface, we will not have theater. It's not just a proscenium stage, but the entire setup is a type of interface. So spectatorship, when we go to theater, spectatorship really depends on separation of space inhabited by publics and a somewhere else that is being created and depicted. And AI is actually a type of theater in this regard, because technologies of representation govern stagecraft and statistics craft, right? Stagecraft would give you theater. Generative AI, the generative mechanism, statistics-based, would be a representation of the data sets it's trained on. So it's a kind of a randomized representation. And AI does carry out certain kind of enactment. This enactment based on user's prompt. If you think of the prompt like prompt in the context of theater, it becomes very clear that we should see AI's operation as theatrical. So AI's outputs are framed and delivered by various interfaces, what I call a technology of representation. And most notably, with the latest generation of Gen AI, that technology of representation, that interface is actually natural language, right? So language itself as a new techno-linguistic condition, because language is the material and the logic of the operation of this machine. So AI's outputs through these interfaces would then end up affecting our self-knowledge, like who do we think we are, for example, and our relationship with the performance, our relationship with other audience members in the auditorium. Interface, if we think about it, it basically is any point of interaction between different environments, between different individuals. Interfaces mediate human actions. Interface is a meaning-making agent, not just a neutral vehicle, right? And we understand that interfaces govern performance events, all performance events, and interfaces construct the publics, because without the framing device, without the interface, you can't speak of a theatrical publics. Like this group of people who all bought tickets to the same show that night, and they show up. So there's kind of a commonality that connects them. There are several key theorists in this field. Marshall McLuhan, for example, speaks of interfaciality. It's concerned with the metamorphosis of two structures. So it's not so much a bridge. Actually, whenever you have an interface, it's affecting both entities. Alexander Galloway takes it one step further to talk about an interface as a quarter transition between different mediatic layers within a nested system. Let's unpack this. So mediatic layer is basically a layer that is mediated. A nested system is an enclosed system of representation. So think of theater stage as nested. Theater stage is one such system. And a codex book. A codex book is a nested system because it contains words, or the silver screen when you go to cinema. Last but not least, the publics. John Dewey had an early definition. This is 20th century definition of what a public is. Basically, it's a group of people who are collectively affected by indirect consequences of transaction. So the transaction can be legal, like there's a legislation, right, or some economic consequences. But more current theory understands it even more broadly. The way is the private individual, they may have certain concerns, has nothing to do with the public. So there's kind of distinction between the private individual and the public, but more current understanding is more sophisticated. We understand that private life is constructed by public life, right? The personal is political. There's no way to really make such a clear division. And recognizing interdependency between humans is really important. So with all this understanding, we're bringing them together, performance, interface, and publics. The theater public's relationships to performance, I argue, is framed by interfaces. Interfaces are sites, unique sites that make these relationships possible. And a public is formed in relation to dramatic discourses that address them, and that is facilitated by interfaces. So if you think of screen as an interface, right, in contrast to the stage, there's a misconception I want to address. People think of screen as stable, right? The key difference people often say between film and theater is that theater has contingency, film is editorialized, right? It's fixed, it's finalized, it's like a book. They think of screen as ideologically transparent. It's just a screen, right? Interfaces are taken to be synonymous with the media themselves. So that's an important misconception. And I believe the production, All the World's a Stage, really compels people to rethink this and kind of think about how interfaces are, of course, not neutral. It's more than just a vehicle. If we take a little pause here and think about what exactly is a play. So I've isolated three key functions of a play. Think of a play, right? It has preservative function. If you think of a play text, it contains words. It's a script that preserves certain artistic ideas. It's waiting to be activated. And so it has a generative function. When you take it, when you embody it, when you dance it out in theater, it's a kind of social action to activate that text. So to transform the preservative function into a generative function. And all this involves purposeful, intentioned interaction with words, with bodies, with different bodies. That's what a play does. And so in this context, the function of an interface, it's like a series of windows, windows onto windows onto windows. Bolter and Richard Grusin, in their famous theory of mediation, they say that representation is not a window onto the world, but rather is itself windowed with other windows that open on to other representation or other media. And so this is a show from 2022. So kind of toward the tail end of the global pandemic of COVID, they built an artificially intelligent translation app to work with this experimental production. The production is episodic in nature. It's not a kind of full-length narrative theater. It's kind of episodic, and they have two actors. They sign Irish Sign Language. And the apps, the translation apps, what they call machine guests, could help humans, quote, see what a machine sees when it went to an event for people and machines, according to the stage bill. The title of this show is a nod to Jacques' speech, All the World is a Stage, and Shakespeare's As You Like It, and alludes to screen's world-making capacities. And it was staged in Trinity College Dublin, and then at the Royal Irish Academy in 2022 and 2023. They wanted to promote cultural exchange among deaf, hard of hearing, and hearing individuals, and to compel audiences to reflect on human-machine relations, as well as what we call prosthesis, right? Hearing aid, you have all sorts of aids, and I think of this AI app as just another aid. So the two actors, Alvin Jones and Leanne Quigley, they stood side by side. They performed side by side in contrasting styles. They performed selected scenes from As You Like It, Hamlet, Macbeth, and Romeo and Juliet, as well as Sonnet 18. And so eventually they made a short film out of it called That Is the Question. But primarily here, we're going to just focus on the theater production. So the production distinguishes itself from other deaf performances. For example, the New York Deaf Theater that did Titus in 2016. There are also work that incorporate multimedia to tell stories. The Wooster Group is well known for that. For example, their Cry Trojans in 2015. Now, this one is very different. It distinguishes itself from those multimedia and deaf performances because it's a world filled with AI screens, but it's not used on stage. It's actually off stage in audience's hand, and these screens connect different worlds within the between the worlds depicted by the stage and social world outside, right? Because of its social media functionality, like suggesting retail suggestions. So this AI is a social media device. It's a heuristic device, right? Because it's there to help audiences understand sign language. And it's a metacritical device because it constructs both the object of vision and its subject. The object of vision is the performance on stage, and the subject is the human audiences. So electronic devices are generally forbidden in formal stage performances, right? Silencer, foam, and so on. But organizers here, they go against the grain. They encourage theater goers to aim their phones equipped with Google Lens at the actors to obtain real-time auto captioning. But I must say, from my analysis, these captions are very, very flawed. The captioning of sign language is based on wireframe tracking of the actors, like this. And the app, when set to retail mode, provides potentially distracting images and links to clothing items that were deemed relevant based on whatever it recognizes on stage. So the app actually fosters what we call channel surfing. Channel surfing behaviors. The channel surfing behavior can be understood through Walter Benjamin's concept of distracted attentiveness. So when developed at the intersection of architecture and film studies, Benjamin theory has key implication for our study of theater and audience. The state of distraction comes about not so much by way of attention as by way of habit. When spectating something, we would naturally think of something else. So that in itself is a type of distraction, but it's attentive distraction because our body remains in theater. So general familiarity with the Shakespearean canon, in this case, right, for the audiences, they allow audiences to understand the dramaturgical meanings. And they don't necessarily have to do attentive observation of performed elements. Now, watching a performance with and through the AI app also encourage reciprocal embedding of perceiver and the perceived. It's interesting that there are so many layers here of mediation. I would like to lay them out for you. So what happens is you see here, there's a big screen upstage that displays the text they are signing. The actors remain in the diegetic bubble. They do not interact directly with the screen. And then in audience's hands, they have smaller screen. They have the cell phone screen with the AI app. there's actually an interpreter on stage with the two actors who will provide a voiceover in modern English, which was auto-transcribed on the screen upstage. So the auto-transcription of spoken words, the words are themselves a translation of sign language, is different from Shakespeare's text. So you have multiple kinds of textual channels going on already. And on the screen, also, there's a live video feed showing the computer analysis of the poses and gestures of the actors as wireframe figures. So there are 4 channels of communication, just to sum it up for you. Number 1, you have sign language, because this is sign language performance, sign language. And then there's auto captioning based on pose analysis. That's the first one. Number 2, you have verbal simultaneous interpretation, and then speech to text transcription of that interpretation. Number 3, you have Shakespeare's text that's projected. And number 4, you have retail suggestions as part of social media enhanced networking. Now, if that is not confusing enough, I will now talk about the challenge of the machine translation, right? So how they made this app, it's actually an API, application programming interface. They combined an API for pose recognition. A lot of these are kind of off-the-shelf models that are available commercially. And then they also used Google Lens image recognition feature and the mobile operating system's auto captioning functionality. So they combine all these to create this app. Sign language grammatical structures, it differs from that of spoken language. And Shakespearean language adds another layer of challenge. So in translating sign language into modern English, the experimental app produced fragmented sentences because they only capture word-level grammatical rather than holistic meanings. It misses the emotive, semantic meanings of hand gesture and facial expressions. We know that sign language is actually not just about your hands. It's the whole body, your facial expression, everything. So last sign language expression of the day after today, for example, we came across simply as tomorrow when the auto captioning is operating. Now, is the word tomorrow different from the day after today? I would say poetically they are different because in saying tomorrow, it's a condensed expression, but in spelling it out, the day after today, you are making a statement. So the captioning just does this in a matter-of-factly tone, rather than it cannot add any question mark, for instance. If they are doing tomorrow question mark, if they're signing that, the app will often just tell tomorrow because they recognize that they're doing that word. In some cases, fragmentation may work well. For example, in Macbeth, you have this famous line, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Now, the app often misses fast-paced signing and slow-paced meditation on the same language. So just to contrast it, the two actors, they sometimes will sign the same passage. One is very fast, the other is slow. You know, to kind of test the app's capacity. The app is really prone to so-called it's prone to under-translate or mistranslate the sign language performance. So audiences who experience a moment in the performance solely through the app would derive dramaturgical meanings not integral to the narrative being signed. As in, you also have to keep an eye on what they are signing and performing and not just kind of stay glued to your phone and read the subtitles. This is perhaps akin to the experience going to the opera, where they provide as super titles or side titles, right? These flaws were the focus of the proof of concept production. They wanted to showcase how the AI co-spectators would see the production in a different light, the way a machine would see it. So the presence of the app created a desire for instantaneous, full-fledged textual rendition of sign language, but then it actually does not fulfill that desire. That auditorium was populated by humans who saw distorted versions of the stage performance through their machine guests. And so there's much to be said here, I think, about AI's roles beyond distortion, right? I see it more as connection, because without this kind of devices, when we go to theater, we tend to leave the world behind, right? You're not thinking about shopping generally. You're not thinking about this social world, at least in conventional Western realist theater. Here they are trying to bring all these worlds together all at once. And that's why it's kind of difficult. So they're creating multiple publics, basically. You have theater going public, they're physically seated in the hall. You have the AI, it has social media kind of capacity, so you're connected to the elsewhere, connected to the publics outside. And the interface here, it's the AI interface. It's actually not just a bridge. You don't think of it as a translator of sign language strictly. It becomes a co-spectator. So they are anthropomorphizing the AI screen. And the screen then serves as a spectatorial proxy. It's not a replacement, but it's a proxy. It's a go-between between hearing audiences and the sign language performer. So there are many other examples. I want to take the final portion of dedicate the final portion of my talk to talking just briefly about other theater artists and dancers' use of AI. Annie Dorsen, who calls herself algorithmic theater artist, actually has been using generative algorithm as an aesthetically productive partner in performance. That's before the rise of GPT. So she used a kind of an early version of what we know now as ChatGPT and GPT-2. Hello, hi there. In 2010, for instance, it is used GPT-2. It's basically a conversation. It's a dramatized AI auto-generated conversation between Michel Foucault and Noam Chomsky. So she took the language, the key elements of their 1971 debate, and then had the AI automatically generate a theatrical piece based on that. In 2013, she did a Hamlet called A Piece of Work. And she said it was a machine-made Hamlet for a post-humanist age. But make no mistake, there was a human actor. There was a human actor. So there's a live actor performing alongside the screen, which shows randomly resequenced passages from Hamlet. So the AI is not actually writing new text. It's like a mixer. So it randomly kind of resequence, and then the human actor perform against that. And the lighting systems were automated. They also had some music. So algorithm generated new songs and visuals, and the lighting was controlled by the AI system as well. Essentially, when the AI is kind of recombining Shakespeare's words, it's reacting to the frequency and infrequency of word patterns in the text. And then you remix the source material. So the human actor, the lone human actor, importantly emerged out of the audience, not from backstage. And then to converse with the rearranged Shakespearean words, the algorithm made decision after decision over and over, generating a nonstop flow of effects without causes and causes without effects. But Annie Dorsen says that's exactly what she wants. The algorithm doesn't have to know what grief is, or revenge, or any of that. Is perhaps to lay bare the artifice of dramatic structures. In my view, a piece of work, it's similar to All the World's a Stage. It's a kind of social collaboration facilitated by AI, right? It's not about who is replacing whom, but rather it's a new form of collaboration, especially if you see AI as a pixelated image of humans' collective output. Then the output is actually deeply human. So it's no longer, I want to break down the dichotomy of kind of humans versus machines. And because the algorithm remixed words, in the case of a piece of work, they're actually human in origin. It's not writing new text per se. It's more a lottery machine. So there are a lot of crucial differences there. And I wanted to wrap up by just thinking broadly, why do we need critical AI studies and performance studies? What do we gain if we bring the two together? Well, first of all, theater is the study of artifice and probability, right? Probable worlds. AI, too, excels in probabilistic decision making. So theater envisions worlds we want to live in, not just the world given to us by tech pros. AI is a social technology, and it can construct imaginative worlds, commonly known as hallucination. But I think if we think of it as mirage or a mirror, might be more accurate. So AI, like theater, is an artistic form of adaptive representational technology. AI, at its core, is artistic. Here are more reasons why we should bring critical AI theory and performance studies together. So audiences, when they go to theater, they tend to engage in suspension of disbelief, right? Because they know it's mediated representations. Now, users of AI, they're often swayed by the fictional representation of consciousness and persuasive agency. So in both drama and AI, there are trustworthy and untrustworthy agents and actionworthy agents. And therefore, the study's insights could enable more critical use of AI. Instead of taking it all in, you treat it as theater. You treat it as drama. Don't believe everything every character has to say. In fact, people regularly do that, like casting things in doubt. That is the pleasure of going to theater, rather than kind of at first degree, right? So from performance studies perspectives, AI algorithmically adapts human-produced words to generate outputs. And that's why there are so many parallels between these two, and that's why it is so important. I just wanted to echo very briefly the wonderful talk that we have just heard. Subin is a wonderful dance project. They also kind of make a claim on preservative function. It's trying to preserve a disappearing dance form. The word Subin refers to cybernetics, and Subin is a Thai word that means stream. So it's a human AI codedancing project as interactive preservation of embodied knowledge of intangible heritage. Intangible heritage, of course, is difficult to preserve. If I photographs, you have video footage, they are never three-dimensional. The best preservation, some people argue, is actually to continue to practice it. In this case, you need people to continue to dance it. So they used AI who would take a live feed of dancers to create virtual characters that could improve its own choreography, and human dancers would riff on the virtual models' poses and their own dances. So my first two examples, they are theater, so it's kind of more verbal, more focused on words. And this example is a combination. It's focusing on the somatic, active somatic presence. Interestingly, the virtual characters, just like the textual generation, the virtual characters, they're not limited by physics or the anatomy of joints. So oftentimes they'll do crazy, impossible movements. I believe we just heard in our first presentation some parallels to that. But the creators are saying that our constraints as humans actually give meanings to our art, and it is inspiring. It is interesting to see virtual characters who can defy gravity. But that actually doesn't mean that the human actors would necessarily imitate that, but it gives you it gives you inspiration in terms of how to transcend, how to kind of move your bodies differently. And everything is happening live, so it's quite powerful. And both sides are riffing off of each other, right? It's not just the humans being influenced by AI, but AI is continuing on this live feed of human dancers in front of it. And so it's simultaneous. And I really applaud this kind of creative, artistic uses of AI, not as content creators, but in this case, it's literally a mirror, right? It's a mirror to inspire you to see yourself. You can't fly, obviously, not like the avatar, but you could derive new movements. Now, how authentic is this compared to the traditional Thai dance that they're trying to preserve? Of course, these are new elements, but their argument is that to keep the heritage alive, this is actually the best approach, rather than kind of being rudimentary limited to the 100 core elements in the Thai dancing tradition. So I'm going to conclude here, and let's begin our discussion. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alexa.